Yeah, the language ones are easy. Like it's fun to make fun of JavaScript. When it's like, oh, 1 equals true is true. What? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you know what you're doing and kind of put proper safeguards in place, like JavaScript's really not like that. You know what I mean? Like you could go against that pretty easily, and it's pretty great. Like you can use it everywhere. Like you said, you can know one language and do full stack everything.
Yeah,
that does limit you, I think, because you might not understand anything else. Like you can basically make an entire career out of knowing only JavaScript. So it might be tough later on when the world moves on after JavaScript. But
I don't even know when that would be.
It'll happen inevitably. I don't know. It just feels like it would have to. Especially, I mean, like Node. Maybe it'll exist forever, but it feels like there would have to be some alternative that's faster or better or whatever. Right? Like it can't just be JavaScript forever.
I don't know. I mean, like if you look at operating systems, right, and you look, and I'm gonna make a pretty wild comparison. Almost every operating system runs on some version of C, right? Like deep down, almost all of them compile down to C, which then compiles down to assembly, which then gets ran on the hardware, right? Or it gets compiled from assembly into machine code into what the hardware executes, right?
Sure.
I feel like JavaScript is the same, but for browsers. Like I feel like JavaScript is so ubiquitous that like every browser just is so reliant on JavaScript that it would be almost impossible for everybody to change over to something besides JavaScript. So I think individual frameworks that we're using in JavaScript will change, but like JavaScript itself will likely stay for a while.
Yeah, I guess there will be a world someday beyond like our current thing of web browsers where of course JavaScript has to exist because it's like this totally backwards compatible crazy thing that has to support every website ever and from the past 20 years. Like every browser has to do this, whatever, right? Like there's this whole crazy thing there of JavaScript, and that all makes sense in today's world because we're still very close to that. Like even C, if you go back, like 1960 was, or 1950 or whatever the fuck, whenever C was invented. I don't know.
The 70s, but...
Well, the 69 thing is the Unix, and that's when that started, right? So I would imagine the development was in the 60s.
Oh, yeah,
50s,
you're right.
But it's such a big thing, I don't know anything. So anyway, that was only 60 years ago. Like, that's recent. Like, within our lifetimes, we can definitely see... Your 60 years ago is recent, buddy.
Yeah, but not in our lifetimes.
You think you're going to die at 36 or whatever, but I'm saying in an average person's lifetime, in my lifetime, over the next 50 years, I will likely see something crazy like something that can replace JavaScript. Even if it's like, oh, well, whatever, I don't know. WebAssembly is this thing that's exposed now to developers, and maybe that's like underlying stuff that JavaScript is calling. So maybe someone can build a replacement alongside it, and then it can take off like after, still using the same kind of core technology or whatever. I don't know. I don't fucking know. I don't know anything. All I'm saying is JavaScript will die one day. Everything will.
No, I agree with that. And I think what kills JavaScript isn't a replacement to JavaScript. I think it's a replacement to browsers. I think at some point we're going to come up with a better way to browse the internet, or a different way anyway. And once that happens, I don't think JavaScript likely won't survive it, because whatever it's written on will hopefully not be also JavaScript.
I don't know. I guess I don't know anything about that kind of like the world outside of the world I live in, which is kind of a stupid thing to say. But like I understand that I work on things with this language, and there's these frameworks, and then operating systems and stuff like that, right? These exist, but like I don't know a lot about anything that changes. So when it's like, oh, where is web technology going? Like, what are browsers going to be in 5 years? Like, I don't even think about that because I'm kind of like not on that level of person. You know what I mean? I just don't think like that. So it's kind of hard.
That's a conversation with Connor.
Yeah, like you need a next level individual to talk about those ideas. I'm just over here like, oh no, I think console log's pretty good.
I also think console log is pretty good. Okay, I don't know. It's interesting to think about. I don't know where it would go, but I think that would be like the only thing that could probably kill JavaScript. I think it's just too ubiquitous at this point.
Yeah, but then you look at maybe someone was saying that same kind of a thing with Java and Java applets 20 years ago. I mean, maybe at that point I wasn't really on the internet in 1990, whatever. But Java applets, right? Like you could embed a game or whatever thing in a website, and then one day Google said it was dangerous, and then the entire industry moved away from it kind of like in a couple of years after that. I mean, stuff like that can die over the course of a couple decades, you know?
That's true. I think for me, it's just like it's. Yeah, I mean, we could go on this, but it's just like so. It's not just like ubiquitous; it's like core to how a lot of browsers actually work. Like browsers themselves use JavaScript to operate on the DOM and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Unless somebody was gonna go through and rewrite like how DOM tree operations work, which I doubt that they would, because that's like deeply embedded in how a browser loads. Like.
Yeah, but someone's gonna have to do that eventually, right? It's like unemployment, and people talk about like, oh, all of these state unemployment systems are built in these ancient languages like COBOL or whatever the hell, and this stuff was never replaced when it should have been, because business people were like, no, that's not a good investment, whatever, because they don't understand the risk, and then 30, 40, 50 years later, no one knows that shit anymore. And, oh God, all of the state unemployment system is based off of it. Like, you're gonna have to rewrite it. Like, you can't just ignore the problem. At some point, if something needs to be improved, like, you have to go in at that crazy, like, deep level or whatever. Otherwise, it's just, like, the time machine in Idiocracy. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but... It's like a smart guy built this a long time ago, and none of us know how to fix it.
Oh, I thought the time machine was just like a...
It was fake. It was a ride. It was a ride, but the thing that when he's referring to it in the beginning, it's like a smart guy made this a long time ago, and no one alive knows how to fix it.
Oh. Isn't that like the whole... Isn't that why they like had to switch to using toilets to water their plants or whatever? Because they've been using Brondo.
Yeah, well, they're just like, they're surprised that the water is what helps the plants because they've been using that Gatorade bullshit or whatever. And it's just like, you mean water, like from the toilet? It's that whole thing. It's a good movie. That's such a good movie.
I've only seen it once, so I don't remember it exactly, but from what I remember, it was funny. What was I going to say? Oh, you might be right about that. I'm not sure. Because I don't know how things go from anywhere. Because you also have stuff like Microsoft. It hasn't really changed its core of how it converts from C to assembly into machine code. Like all that stuff has been the same as far as I know since like the beginning almost. Like since the first instances of DOS. Sorry.
They had to do like different architectures though. So like they have an x86 whatever compiler now, and then they have an ARM one for their new stuff coming out. So they do still work like at that level. It's just, I don't know. All I'm saying is I don't think about how technology will change on a grand scale, and I couldn't guess or whatever. All I know is that I'm not smart enough to understand like the trend or whatever that we're living in.
Yes.
No.
I agree.
Well, you agree that I'm not smart?
No, I agree that it's like it's like trying to be like a psychic and guess the future kind of deal, where you really have no idea how it's gonna go, because really what you're waiting for is like some genius or like some team of really, really smart people to just pull something out of thin air, basically. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if that's what the world wants or cares about. Like, do we need anything to replace a web browser? Do we as a people really need anything beyond technology that we have today? That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Maybe we've hit I don't know. Whatever. I'm not going to keep going on that.
I agree. Do you want to use this as our intro then and just skip the rapid fire question, or do you want to do the rapid fire question opener?
Up to you. I mean,
I think that was a better opener than the rapid fire question would be. So let's stick with that.
Okay, we could save the rapid fire for the end of the thing.
Okay, that works for me.
Sure.
All right.
Now the pressure's on to actually start it because this is all going. This is all recorded.
I know. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Virtual and Mobile, episode 72 of the Home Games Podcast. I'm Yazeed, and this is Joseph.
Hello, my name is Joseph, and today is Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. Almost forgot how to say 2021 there. And home game stuff today, we are going to be talking about some of the infrastructure changes for Pico de Gallo, which is the home games demo website. Kind of a little side library that I made during that process. And then I had some thoughts on vision stuff following up on what we talked about last week and the week before. When I said I have some thoughts, I actually woke up from my slumber thinking about vision. Which was a really strange experience. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. First, what's up with you, Yazeed?
Well, normally, all right. A couple of things. First, I want to open up with a dog tale, because I don't think I've done that in a little bit.
Dog minute.
So last week was Sapphire's last Agility 1 class, so she passed it, but at the end of that class I was just, we're like, all of us are like, oh cool, our dog's passed, like we're just chilling, our dogs are exhausted, we're pretty tired from just running the agility course over and over again, and one of the other people who attends the class, their dog is going to become a therapy dog, like they're working on that dog becoming a therapy dog, and so that dog is like super chilled out, really mellow, and he was like, do you want to try having your dog meet my dog? And I was like, are you comfortable with the possibility that my dog goes after your dog? And he was like, I don't think that she will. And I was like, let's try it. And so he sat his dog down facing just straight ahead, and Sapphire was standing at my side just facing straight ahead, and I let her on her own time meet his dog, and it was super awkward as like a human watching her and having seen how other dogs greet each other. She's like very awkward around other dogs. She doesn't like keep her distance and like smell them. She like bumps up against them while she's smelling them. she really was like a little kid, like trying to figure out how to make friends for the first time. But she made a friend. She didn't go after that dog. That dog didn't go after her. And she was pretty chill around that dog. So I was in the almost year that I've had her, she's never gotten more than like 9 feet away from another dog without having attempted to go after them. So it was like a huge thing, and
nice.
I was so proud of her, and I was so happy.
Nice, that's cool. Do you have this pressure now because finding a friend for her is so rare? Do you feel like there's pressure for you to befriend the other dog's owner?
No, probably not, because him and I are going to do Agility 2 together. So for another 6 to 7 weeks, we're going to still be attending the same class together and like see each other. But we're going to go different ways with our dogs, right? So he's going to take his dog into therapy. I want my dog to do search and rescue. So basically, like once this class is over, like we probably won't really run into each other anymore. Except he works where I live, like around where I live. Like he saw me when I was on a walk one day. So I might, if we run into each other, I'll probably have Sapphire say hello to his dog again.
I don't know. This story sounds like the beginning of like a beautiful friendship. Maybe this dude will eventually replace me on this podcast or something. I'm just trying to keep a watchful eye. That's all.
I wouldn't worry about that. I don't know anything about that dude. Just his dog is roughly Sapphire's age, and he is going to do a therapy work with her, and I'm not going to do therapy work with Sapphire. So
yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to Sapphire on being agile, but not too agile.
She is agile. She's just clumsy when she's meeting other dogs. It's like she's in middle school trying to make friends with other middle schoolers is the closest thing I would compare it to. Like how awkward middle schoolers are is how the vibe I got from her trying to befriend this other dog.
Yeah. I meant because she's taken agility 1 and she hasn't finished agility 2, so that's why she's not too agile. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. I'm trying to become a rapper as like a third side thing, so I'm just working on my wordplay, you know. I'm gonna take a note here that says "went over their heads," you know, a little too slick for them.
That one was a little bit too slick.
A little too agile.
A little too agile for me. I actually have a recording of her running the course, but
Nice.
I'll show you when I see you in person.
You should put the like the Rocky song behind it. Make a cool YouTube video. Or what's the other one? Eye of the Tiger. That's what you should put in the background of that.
Isn't that the Rocky song?
No, that's wait, shit, isn't it?
That is the Rocky song, homie.
Is it?
It is.
Dun, 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 dun. Wow, what the fuck? No, it's not, because isn't Rocky dun 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 dun.
I think
Isn't that
Eye
the
of
Rocky
the
song?
Tiger and that song are tied to Rocky.
Yeah, but okay, so there are 2 songs, just to confirm.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not crazy. Because I had a Rocky game on the Game Boy Advance, and that song came on every time at the beginning, and it's like burned into my eyes and ears, because there's a Rocky American flag thing going around. Yeah, it's like in my head forever. If a song is burned into your eyes, that's crazy.
I thought about there's like a Vine, I think, or a TikTok about it, and they were like, "Have you ever been like trying to find parking in a parking lot and you turn the music down to see better?" And that's what that's what that reminded me of when you're like, "It's burned into my eyes." I was like, "What are you talking about?"
It's totally real though. The turning down the music thing, it is like
that is
better.
legitimate. I do that too.
Yeah.
But what about you, man? What's happening?
Oh, I don't know. I'm reading the notes because I forgot what I had already said earlier. Before we had done the recording stuff, I had mentioned I got my car title, so I can finally start driving my car next week. Also played a bunch of video games. So I didn't mention this the past month or so, but in the beginning, since I wake up early and I kind of have like a couple hours before I have to do stuff every morning, I just fuck around and play games and stuff. So I started playing this game called Ion Fury like 6 weeks ago, and it's made by the people who made Duke Nukem, the original, like Duke Nukem 3D. I think the team is what's the name of it? Fuck, I was just thinking of 3D Realms. And the engine is called the Build Engine, is what they made Duke Nukem with. And I believe it's like this game is built on a super updated version of the Build Engine, so it looks a lot like Duke Nukem, and it's essentially Lady Duke Nukem. You play as a lady, and she talks like as you kill shit, and it's a first person shoot everything game. Like I said, I never really mentioned it because it's just kind of exactly what you think it is. It's a modern Duke Nukem game, and it's really good for what it is. Anyway, I beat it this morning, so I figured I would mention it. It was cool. It took me like 10 hours to beat. I probably won't play it more, but there's like 30 secrets or something crazy in every level. Like, you'll beat the level and it'll be like, hey, you killed 100 out of 105 enemies, and you got 5 out of 60 secrets. Want to try the level again? It's like, absolutely not. I'm not going to go through like with a fine-tooth comb and interact with every single thing in the level to get the secrets and stuff. So but anyway, just wanted to mention that game. I think it's pretty cool. Also got an emulator set up so I can play Ratchet and Clank, like the original Ratchet and Clank, on my emulator. So the reasoning for that is because there's a new Ratchet and Clank coming out in June, and to my knowledge, the only Ratchet and Clank that came out on the PS4, so like for the last several years, was a remake of the first game, like a reimagining or whatever of the first game. Because I don't know if you remember, but there was a Ratchet and Clank movie. Are you familiar with the series? Okay, yeah.
I know of the series. I've never played any Ratchet and Clank though.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, 3D platformer, that whole thing. Ratchet and Clank, 2 dudes. There's a movie in 2016, 2017, something like that. It was kind of mostly a kids movie, but it was based on these characters, and it was essentially a movie of the first game. And so they made a game based on that movie, which is strange. Like, it's a remake of the first game, which, because it's a game based on the movie, which was based on the first game, even on the back of the case, it says the game based on the movie based on the game. So, like, they're joking about the fact that it's kind of stupid. And just from the first like hour or so I played of the very first Ratchet and Clank, the original, and like the original cutscenes and the original whatever, it's 100% my nostalgia and my like biased whatever thing, but the sense of humor in that game and the way that it plays and the kind of just simplicity of the upgrade system and the weapons and the character of everything is just so perfect. And it makes me sad that all they did with the PS4 was make a remake of that first game. Even if it was pretty good, like it didn't feel like enough. It felt like, given the PS4 technology, they should have made a cooler game or a bigger game or something, whatever. Mm-hmm. So apparently that's what the new Ratchet and Clank in June is going to be. So that's pretty much the whole, or like a huge reason for owning a PS5, at least to me, is like a benefit of it is being able to play the new Ratchet and Clank. So super excited for that. I love Ratchet and Clank. It's one of my favorite series ever. And yeah, the first game is great. Something else surprising to me is that on the emulator, like my monitor is 21:9. Mm-hmm. Those games were made, in 2003 or whatever. So the standard thing was a 4:3 aspect ratio, like a CRT. So even 16:9 support on those games is pretty weird. But on my emulator, it just naturally renders at 21:9 and it looks totally fine. So I don't know how much of that is the game and how much is the emulator, but it's super impressive that a game made that long ago looks totally fine on my 21:9 monitor.
Nice. That's really impressive. I don't know how they do those aspect changes like that.
Yeah, especially because that game was made for the PS2. I guarantee no one in 2003 was hooking up a PS2 to a 21:9 display. So I don't know. I don't think that game natively supports it. So I don't know what the emulator is doing there to make it look fine. But it looks totally awesome. And it's like rendering internally at 4K, so everything is super sharp.
Wow.
Yeah.
For something that is in theory against the TOS of those games, emulators are hilariously impressive when you look at how they actually run. Because oftentimes they're also taking a game that's built for an entirely different architecture and being like, don't even think about it. We're running this on a like Microsoft operating system.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gained such an appreciation for emulators in the past few years. I think as I've kind of realized that I really value that historical preservation stuff. Because eventually, it's like that episode of South Park where Cartman wants to go into the future so he can get a Nintendo Wii because he couldn't wait for one, but he ends up going way too far into the future, and so he still just wants to play the Wii. He doesn't give a shit about everybody being dead or whatever. So there's like no more Wiis, and there's like one left in the world, and so he wants to just play the Wii. And basically, one day we will live in a world where there are no more PlayStation 2s, there are no more GameCubes. And all this work and all this stuff that these people made that were like really, really great things just won't exist anymore outside of videos or whatever. And we kind of have that with movies, but I would argue not to the same extent, because I don't really know why I don't have that argument fleshed out to like present it, but it feels like formats of movies have been relatively like recoverable. If you have an old film reel from like 60 years ago, there's no weird. I would guess, generally speaking, there's no weird proprietary technology where only this box made by this corporation this year can read this thing, like, which is what a console is. I don't think movies have that kind of a thing. It's like there's a format, it's DVD or it's Blu-ray or it's a film reel or it's whatever. But no, like we need ways to access all this stuff because it's history and it's important and it's like classic artistic works or whatever, and that stuff is super cool. So I agree with you. Like they're sketchy and they're shady, like morally and legally. But I would argue there's no way to legally buy Ratchet and Clank. I went to the PlayStation Store, went to whatever. Like I own that game on PS2. I'm pretty sure. I don't know the laws. I don't know anything legally, but I'm pretty sure if you own those games, it's not bad to have an emulator. It's like not as bad as if you don't own the games. Anyway, I own the games, so whatever. Fuck it. Yeah, but like if your PS2 goes out and eventually that finite supply of PS2s goes away, people won't have Ratchet and Clank. Like that's bad to me. I want emulators to exist, and I would love to learn how they work, because it's essentially like put the game in, let it talk to my system instead of the Xbox. Okay, the game said 2. What do I do now? Like give it a 4 or something and see what it says back, and then figure out that way how to make the fucking console work. That shit's insane to me, dude. So anyway, yeah, it's impressive and it's important, I think, all that stuff.
Nice. How into Pokemon are you?
The games or like the general thing?
Both. Either. Both.
I love the games. I spent hundreds of hours as a kid playing the games. I just recently started playing Pokemon. Whatever the one on the Switch is, the newest one on the Switch.
So are you gonna get the like open world one?
Yeah, pretty excited. I'm gonna get the new Pokemon Snap as well because that looks. I love Pokemon Snap. I guess I'm a pretty big Pokemon fan. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Now that I think about it.
I have never played a Pokemon game.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But I like open world RPGs. So I was thinking when the new Pokemon open world game comes out, I'd want to try it. So it's like, well, then I'd have to get a Switch. But knowing what you know about me, do you think I would actually enjoy this game?
I am hesitant to say yes because at least as far as my understanding and just like for some context on where I'm coming from here, I played Pokemon, probably Yellow or something on the Game Boy, and then played essentially every new like major version of it, like Fire Red, Leaf Green, Sapphire, Ruby, like Emerald, all those stuff. Like I had both versions of every one of them for the next like 10 years. I hit like 15 and stopped playing them completely. So they might have progressed beyond that. I started playing, like I said, the Switch one recently. So I kind of have some perspective on the newer ones as well. But my point is, they're all essentially the same game. The story is the same. It's like relatively generic. The combat system seems to me, there's some changes in the new one from what I can tell, but the combat system is simple. Like, it's repetitive and it's whatever, but there's something in the world and that whole thing, at least for me, that makes me keep wanting to play them, like to the point where like it's so formulaic, it's insane. It's like Call of Duty or whatever, right? It's just a different skin. And there's new Pokemon that I don't give a fuck about. Like I don't care about all the new Pokemon or whatever, but I'm still just whatever. But maybe you would like it. Give it like an hour. But if the combat doesn't appeal to you and the kind of getting around in the world and the characters don't appeal to you, then don't, because it's like 50 hours of that.
I see. I mean, for me, I would also need to get a Switch, and it would be the first console I buy in like, I don't know, since the 360. So there'd be like a huge investment from me.
Well, I have if I'm able to drive at any point soon, you can like borrow my 3DS or something. I don't play it anymore. I mean, you can borrow that in one of the older Pokemon games. I mean, you can get the idea of it before you make an investment like that, because like they're literally the same game. When we were in high school, I don't know. I just had a panic attack there in the middle of that sentence.
It was the word high school. It was like, it was like when somebody says like Vietnam, you're like, the trees, we're talking. No, in high school, that was the game that I told Zenobia to play, like to kind of get an idea of what video games I liked, because she was super new to the whole thing. She had seen her brother play games and stuff before, but she had never really played games. So I let her borrow my Game Boy Advance SP, and she, spent 30, 40 hours, something like that, because I can see on the save time, she actually spent that much time playing that game, which was super cool. And she got really, really far, like surprisingly, impressively far in the game for someone, who hadn't really played games before, which again is kind of like a testament to the fact that they're simple. Like they're more of an experience than a challenge. And the experience is often similar. But no, she gave it back to me and she was just like, yeah, I got to this part, but like, I get it. I don't think I want to keep playing it though. But I was kind of just surprised that she even made it that far in the first place. But anyway, like I said, 40 hours in, and then I somehow, like I mentioned at some point that I was running in the game, or I had the bike in the game or something. And she's like, what, you can run? So she spent 40 hours playing this game, moving like as slow as she possibly could, not knowing there's a run button or a bike. It's like spending GTA, like, just fucking walking everywhere. It's crazy. That was my cyberpunk experience for a while there.
It's impressive. I don't know, but
that's
anyway.
Hilarious. Part of why I'm hesitant to accept your offer is because if I do end up being like, oh, okay, like this game is looks okay, like I would wait probably for like Donkey to do a review on it or something, like somebody who or like you or JC or somebody to like play it that I know, and just to say like, yeah, this game isn't like doo garbage before we try to play it, because like you said, it's an experience, and this would be like my first time experiencing it at all, so maybe like that part of it would be new and like exciting. I don't know.
Maybe. I still would say, like, if you... Maybe you don't have this because you never really played the games when you were a kid, but I don't know if you have any of the Pokemon nostalgia for, like, Pikachu and Charmander and Squirtle and all those guys. If not, then it might be different. But if you have that at all, that recognition, I would say you should play Fire Red, which was a GBA game. But that was like a remake of Red, or a redo of Red, whatever. It's the same thing. So you have the old Pokemon, but it was like kind of some updates from the mid 2000s, and it's really good. So the other ones are kind of just that, but with different Pokemon with different names that I don't like. So
I don't know, straight up I only know like 10 Pokemon, and my favorite Pokemon is Gyarados, so that's where I'm at.
Gyarados is in Fire Red.
Okay, maybe I do.
I don't know if all the Pokemon carry over. Like, I don't know if every time they add a new generation, they keep the old ones in there. Like, I don't know if I can get a Charmander in Pokemon Diamond or whatever the fuck it's called. What is this game called? Sword. Pokemon Sword.
Wasn't that like a big kerfuffle on that? Was that people were butt mad that you couldn't get... wasn't like 100% carryover. It was only like 60% carryover or something.
I don't know. I didn't hear about that. I mean, it would be frustrating if I was one of those 100% Pokedex people. I knew one of those on the one of those. It's not like they're a different breed of person. I knew somebody a long time ago. Yeah, they are, but he had 100%. I think it was a she. I forget who it was. Someone on a bus had 100% of the Pokedex, and I was like, all right, cool. Never fuck with you, because you're gonna go to whatever length to get something done. You know, you need like, taken care of.
This person's a crazy person. I don't want to mess with them.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I just saw that there was the announcement, and I was like, oh, I really do enjoy open world RPGs. Like, I think they're in my top 3 types of genres of games to play. So.
Is it the combat is turn based? Like, are you into that?
I mean, I played XCOM, which is also like a turn based kind of RPG thing. The problem is I don't really play turn based games. The only turn based game that I really put a lot of hours into is like Civilization. That's the only one. So, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe watch a YouTube video of the game. I have a hard time imagining you, especially someone without the nostalgia for those games, just jumping into that whole world, because those games are, they don't strike me as a Yazeed game.
Hilariously, that's the consensus, is that Pokemon is not a Yazeed game, and I should just appreciate it from a distance.
Well, yeah, especially if you're into this whole thing of like making your own world, making your own story, and kind of being the strategy involved in progressing things forward. Like, none of that is in Pokemon.
Oh.
There's no strategy to be had. It's do the attacks, make sure that your Pokemon are a higher level than the other Pokemon, catch the ones that are different types, so you have a diverse thing of types to counter the other types that you'll run into. At least in the old games, it was take them to the daycare so that they can level up and stuff, and then go to the Elite Four and you beat the game. Like, it's such a formula.
Oh.
Sorry, I don't mean to shit on it. I love these games.
Well, listen, I'm not even a fan of these games. I straight up was just like, oh, cool, an open world game. Maybe that would be cool to play, to get into Pokemon.
Maybe it'll be great, because it'll be different enough, hopefully, if it's 3D and they make other changes to the combat and all that stuff. I don't know much about it, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Did you have anything else for the What's Up section?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention briefly that I beat my previous high score in Devil Daggers, so that was a pretty big accomplishment for me. I'm in the top 5,000 or something in the world in Devil Daggers now, which is great. Devil Daggers, for those unfamiliar, is I don't know the genre, but it's a first-person shooter where you are in a circle, like in a little arena, and enemies come at you and you just try to survive as long as you can. There's one thing, like no levels, there's no whatever, you die and that's it. So you just try to last as long as you possibly can. So I made it to like 5.5 minutes, which I will say is impressive as fuck. That game's super hard, and it's really great. It's you play it in like 30-minute chunks or whatever, and my playtime is something like 80 hours on Steam over the past 5 years. So I'm a big fan, and finally, still after all these years, I just beat my high score. But while I was playing that on Steam, or just after I was playing that on Steam, it recommended this game to me. It was like $2.99 or something, and it was called Crossbow Blood Knight, and it looked kind of generic. Like the screenshots were kind of like a gothic type look, you know, skeletons and kind of weird looking monsters or whatever. But then just like a big dark castle in the back and some designs, whatever. It looked kind of whatever. But I have a weakness for those kinds of games. Basically, any game that's less than $5 where the screenshots look like a gun, I'll buy that shit almost immediately because I'm an idiot. Anyway, this game looked okay, so I bought it, and I realized quickly it is a Devil Daggers clone. It is essentially someone out there was like, I love Devil Daggers, I'm gonna go make the same thing in Unity. And so they did. And it's simple. You hold down the mouse button and you shoot a stream of stuff. You click the mouse button and you shoot a spread of stuff. You click the well, this is different in this game where you can right click to like aim, and then you get a rocket launcher. So it's kind of different from Devil Daggers, because Devil Daggers you don't have that. But I respect it. It's one of these games where like I can see from the beginning that it was not well polished, and it was pretty like cheap and low budget and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, I won't spend that much time on this, and it'll just be something to see. It was $3-4, so it's not that big of a deal. But then it was like, oh shit, I played this for 2 hours. This is actually super cool, because that same hook of Devil Daggers is in this game, like trying to progress, beat your time. So I'm in the top 500 of that game, which is pretty fucking cool, but not many people play it, so whatever.
You're the top 500 of 600.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention that game because I, like I said, I respect it. Like I have the same love for Devil Daggers that this person has, so I can see myself being like, yeah, I'll make a version of that in Unity, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. Like I like that they did this. I like that it's different enough, and they added their own little twist, and I like the game, so it was cool. Crossbow Blood Knight.
I have a question on that then. I know that you said you really hadn't really weren't thinking about making games this year, but would you want to make a game like that instead of your city sim? Or your clicker city sim? I don't remember exactly where that cutoff was between those two.
The city clicker thing. Yeah, I still want to do the city clicker at some point because I think it'd be a cool game idea. I think I'm just realizing like a game is a very iterative thing, and it takes months to make one. So like the idea of, oh, I have these 17 games I want to make isn't really gonna just work. I have ideas for some. Like Connor and I actually a few years ago made a Geometry Wars clone called Foo, which is still on my GitHub. So like that was all his idea and stuff, but I would love to make a game like that again. I just don't really know how it would work in home games because of the latency stuff, and so much of it is based on kind of Twitch reactions. So if there's like 30 milliseconds between you and the game, and it requires 50 millisecond response time or whatever, like it's not going to be a good experience. Yeah.
Oh, like an 80 ping.
Yeah, which shouldn't happen if you have just a router and it's just talking to the same thing in your house. Like I don't see how an 80 millisecond delay would happen. Whatever. But yeah, it would just be a networking thing, and it's really hard to diagnose network issues because someone's like, oh, when I stand in the corner of my concrete house, my home games instance gets a little wonky. It's just like, yeah, man, what the fuck am I gonna do about it?
Install a window.
Knock down the wall. If it's structural, get a new house.
Yeah. Cool, man. I would be interested in playing your version of that.
Thank you. It's flattering that you think I would know anything about making any game at all. It's one of those things where like it's like music, where I can listen to a Young Thug song and be like, that thing that he did there is special, and God, I don't know what to call it. I don't know the words for it, but like fucking this guy's singing, you know? Like you can recognize something cool and know nothing about how it's done. Mm-hmm. So that's the game thing to me, where it's like Devil Daggers, I'm sure took so much work to make and so much whatever, but it's like these simple graphics and it's this simple, pure, like perfect thing. And you know, kind of this other Unity thing where it's a less polished version of it, but like I see the same things in them both, and I don't know how I would make either.
True. I understand where you're coming from, but I think my interest in it is because I've never played a game like that. Again, I think for me it's just like I'm more interested to see like your take on that genre than to actually play that genre, because that's not really the kind of game that I enjoy. Like I'm not super interested in like beating my own high score. That's not generally like why I play a game.
Yeah, it's actually really not mine either, which is why those games are cool. I think when someone else beats my score, that's when it like really makes me invested in trying to whatever. But Devil Daggers is kind of that thing where, again, like I have 30 minutes to just fuck around and like, okay, well maybe I'll beat my score, maybe I won't, but it's still fun if I don't, you know. Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing, is it's like you have to enjoy it. If it's, I'm not gonna try to beat my own score in bullshit. I'm not gonna try to get a better time in some game I fucking hate. It has to be super fun at its core, and Devil Daggers is to me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Why not?
Also, full disclosure, buddy, I ate an edible about 10 minutes before we started recording, so that might start kicking at a certain point in the next 15-20 minutes or so.
All right, well, let me tell you. Let me.
I'm in no rush, by the way.
Let me tell you the last thing on my stuff before that kicks in, so I get absolutely just dunked on. One of my other friends was like, "Oh, hey, the company that runs all the English VTubers, like all the big English VTubers, is holding tryouts. You should try out." And I was like, why would I try out? And he was like, come on, you could do it. And then I was like, well, you know, I guess. So
what the fuck? You really?
I have a really hard time saying no to people. It's just it's like a problem I have where if somebody asks me to do something, I don't want you to be like, oh, that's the only reason Yazeed does home games. I do home games because I enjoy home games and working with you, and because you asked me to. It's like those three reasons all together is why.
I didn't have that thought, but now I do.
Oh,
you
don't have that thought, because that's not the same as that. Because
joking.
Anyway, yes, he was like, oh, you should try it. And I was like, no. And he was like, oh, you should try it. And I was like, no. And he was like, you should try. And then he sent me the application. I looked at the application. I was like, well, you know, I'm already looking at it. I might as well apply. But there's two asks on there that I can't actually fulfill because I don't watch VTubers. One is, who's your favorite VTuber? And I was like, shit, I don't know any VTubers. And the other thing was, you're supposed to do a 5-minute recording of yourself pretending to be a VTuber character and send that to them. And I was like, well, I don't have a character yet, so I think I'm with a character, and then I have to find a VTuber that I like. So over the last week, I've watched like 8 hours of VTubers.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So besides that 5-minute video, what else does the tryout require? Any more kind of like content from you?
I mean, they don't. They ask you if you have like a Twitter account, and I wouldn't link my personal Twitter account. That seems like a bad idea. And they're like, do you have a YouTube account? No, I was like, I wouldn't link my personal YouTube account because that also sounds like a bad idea. But I would definitely say like, oh yeah, I work on this podcast. It's every week. I'm on almost every week of it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like one of the main people on it. It's like that's some content.
You're
that
co-host
I put out regularly, huh?
You're co-host.
I am a co-host. Yes.
That's the word.
Yeah, so like I'd include that on there, but I wouldn't be like here's my portfolio of content that I put out. But that's partially because like I think my idea for being like a streamer is to be like an anti-streamer almost, like to not just like sit in my room and like play video games all day, but I want to like take people outdoors with me, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
I respect it. You want to be something different.
Yeah, yeah.
I just think it's very, very funny that the last time we saw each other in person, you were in my home on the couch in that room, and you were like, basically like, man, fuck VTubers.
Yeah.
What a lame, useless thing. All these fucking losers watching them.
Yep.
It's all garbage.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a society of idiots.
Yes.
And now a couple months later, you're filling out an application for being a VTuber, and you watched 8 hours of VTuber content this week.
Listen, here's the thing. I get paid either way, all right? If I get it and I get paid for being a VTuber, that's good enough, Gary, all right? And if I don't get it, then I've literally just wasted a whole week of my life.
Have you found any appreciation or respect for people who do that stuff over the past week? Or anything that you just didn't know in general?
There's a lot that I didn't know. They put in a
no new respect. Fuck those guys still, but I did learn a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like, I still feel the same. Like, I think being a VTuber is good for the person being a VTuber still, right? Like, 'cause it protects their identity, especially if you're like a lady in a country somewhat known for sexual harassment. It's probably like really helpful to be anonymous, right? It's like being a VTuber. I get why somebody would want to be a VTuber. I don't understand fully why people want to watch VTubers, because I don't even like watching streamers really, just like regular streamers. Like I'm like a VTuber is just like that, but like slightly weirder. But yeah, it seems they put in a lot of work, and some of them are very skilled compared to what I thought that they would be like. The one that I probably think is the most interesting, like, draws on stream, and she draws really well. Like, in my head, I was like, oh, like, they're just gonna, like, doodle anime stuff or whatever, and they do draw anime stuff, but it's, like, really well done anime stuff.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. I think I respect that more now that time has passed, and I guess to me, anytime I view... This is a me thing, kind of, maybe. When it's like girl doing thing on the internet and like it's a persona and it's an anime girl, I immediately think of like weird sex stuff that makes me uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And so in that way, I still think the idea of a VTuber is weird if someone's jerking off to a fake thing that you act as on camera. But whatever, do you, whatever. But I still think it's weird. But if it's this general idea of a persona online that you have, and it's like you said, it covers up your real identity, and people have personas online anyway. Like a lot of people who are on YouTube or who are on TV and stuff, like they aren't really like that in real life. So adding that extra layer of kind of a character on top to make it, one, super obvious that this thing is not you as a person, and then two, to protect you from all the fucking crazy people, which there will be plenty. So I think, like, as a general thing, I think that type of streamer is totally cool. Like that seems like something that'll be more important in the future.
Would you watch me if I stream as a VTuber, Joseph?
I would.
You're the only person who said that they would.
Well, this week I was watching, like, I just like having just noise, just things on the TV while I do other stuff. And so I have like PBS on, stuff like that. And I just looked at the TV, like every 30 minutes I'll take a look at it and see what's going on. It's like a 30-minute ad for a local law firm. Like, they booked out the whole 30-minute space on, like, Channel 4, so not PBS, but something else. And they were like, yo, our radio ads that never stop? We're on here too, motherfucker. So I just like, okay, maybe I need something else. And I'd rather watch you on your VTube game or whatever, than
nice.
Lerner and Rowe.
What is their marketing budget? Their marketing budget has to be nuts.
It's so crazy. I used to only know them from Las Vegas when we would go to vacation, like go on a vacation to Las Vegas when I was a kid, and it was something. I think it was still Lerner and Rowe is the way to go, but I think it was 877-1500 was the number back then in Las Vegas. And then just before I moved in 2016, I heard their stuff on Arizona radio, and their number was different. Their song was slightly different, but it was the same big grin, smug looking dude. And I was like, oh shit, they've invaded. You know?
Yeah, I know those. They've been around for a long time too. When are they gonna retire?
They must be good, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I thank you for saying that you would watch me. I really don't think that I would get the nod because I'm not a.
You're not cute enough.
What? I'm not cute enough. Yeah. I'm not cute enough. But also like I said, like I'm not like, I don't play games like 100 hours a week, right? I play games like 6, 7 maybe. It's like I don't play a lot of video games anymore, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'd be interesting to do that either, because I don't generally like narrate when I'm playing. My brother, hilariously, is actually probably like a better VTuber or better like just streamer personality than I ever would have.
Yeah, it just seems like such a general thing. Like, why would you even need someone to let you into this thing? Couldn't you? I mean, you'd have to build the technology thing yourself, or like you figure it out yourself. But what's stopping you from just developing some weird anime persona and just doing your own content?
I think that the what the like company gives you is like instantaneous like recognition and advertisement. Like they put out like a lot of content like that like would highlight you as a person, plus like you're tied to that company, and they have like, I think literally one person during her debut stream, like literally like all she's doing is talking about her person, like her character, like just describing her character, like what that character likes, dislikes, what anime that character reads or whatever, or watches or whatever. She had 100,000 subscribers during that 1 hour, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's insane. Wow. And some of them hit like 2 million in 5 months or whatever. Like the amount of what is it called, PR that you get just from being tied to that company is insane. Like you don't even have to build a fan base; one just lands in your lap.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation. I think I was listening to a podcast recently with Riley Reid, the porn star, where she was essentially talking about girls on OnlyFans and kind of the shift in the market, essentially, where you don't need the big corporate backing, like you don't need a big porn company, whatever, to get into the business, whatever, these days, because it's all kind of like democratized or whatever, with stuff like OnlyFans where anybody can sign up for it. And it's kind of an interesting thing is like, obviously not like, this particular part was not a sexual conversation, even though that's the business, but whatever. So they were just talking about how that your fan base comes faster when you go to that big company, and that's definitely a big thing, and it's good advice to start there. But there is a difference between building your own fan base kind of from nothing and then kind of getting that big fan base from the start, I think. And they were talking about kind of like the value of your fan base, like who's gonna buy. I think they were talking about this stuff. Maybe this was me thinking about it, but like who's gonna buy your stuff of your 100,000 fans? Like who's gonna buy your T-shirt? Like if you did a show, who's gonna go? Like that's a super different number. So if you like, I don't know how a VTuber could ever do a show because the whole thing is that it's a fake person. But what am I trying to say? I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
No, I get it, and I know what you mean about like building your fan base like organically and slowly.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, I think I just view this as like an interesting challenge. Like, can I even, like, how hilarious would it be if I'm not really into VTubers or streamers in general, but like, what if my idea is good enough that they're like, oh, or like is interesting enough that they're like, oh, let's interview this guy, and then I get interviewed by this like Japanese company. I don't know any Japanese, and they're like, we liked your idea, like, and then I have to do this like personality interview with them, and then like from that, what if I got hired and it's like, oh shoot. Honestly, my biggest fear is that they do like it and I do go through the interview process and they are like, this guy could do it, and then I have to actually do it, and I'm like, oh fuck. I'm an enormous idiot in front of people. This isn't good.
I am fully supportive of whatever.
Thank you, thank you. Also, how hilarious would it be is if I make like 100,000 a year or whatever off of being a VTuber, when in reality it's like I don't even know why I have any fans.
Well, just make sure you incorporate home games a lot in your VTuber content so that we'll get some fans that way, you know? You can use
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I'd be like, oh, like what talents do I have? And it's like, oh, I hike, I own a dog. Like those two things could be like part of my content. And I was like, oh, what else? It's like I can write code. And I was like, oh, how hilarious would it be is if I have like a hand in making home games like pop off because as a VTuber, I was like, so I was looking through GitHub and I found this like small repo run by these two guys. Yeah. I would just have to be careful that they aren't like connect the dots back to this show and then watch this episode where I'm basically just absolutely slamming VTubers.
Or the one where you're like, I'm going to be a VTuber named, Y Lord. And then they're just like, damn, my favorite VTuber, Y Lord, sounds a lot like this person. It'd be pretty easy. It's like that dude, the CSGO lottery, whatever thing. He did exactly that on YouTube. He was like, hey guys, just found this cool website where you can bid on CSGO items. It's pretty cool. Check it out. And then like 6 months later or whatever, it came out that dude owned that website. Fucking idiots, man.
I mean, luckily, as of right now, home game is a free product. So, I mean, anybody could use it. So I'm not really like, we're not getting any money out of this. If anything, it's costing you more money if I make this popular.
Yeah, that should be like a thing. We should do. It's like an anti-advertising campaign where it's like you go and post on like 4chan or someone like, "Hey guys, this motherfucker has he's a horrible guy. Hate his website. Bring it down. Found out that if you sign up for an account and play it, it'll like cost them $2. It's like, damn, we got 50,000 signups and bankrupt, but we're popular." That's not a real number, by the way. I don't know what it costs for a user to sign up.
Well, we'll find out. I'll just write a bot that just spams new users.
Awesome.
No, I'm kidding. Are you ready to move on to home game stuff, or do you have anything else you want to tell me on the VTuber part?
Yes, home game stuff. Let me just verify that this is all still recording on my thing. Oh, God. I have to edit this part out of the video now. More work for me. It's okay. Anyway, I think we're still good.
Hey.
Yeah, okay, we're still good. Yeah, home game stuff. Your note here says nothing, so I'm going to go ahead and say I have some stuff for home games this week.
Very nice.
So I spent a stupid amount of time trying to, if people recall, or people who don't, whatever, at the beginning of the year, one of my goals was to, quote, productionize our infrastructure. And part of that was Pico de Gallo, which is the demo of home games that is publicly accessible over the internet. And so the whole thing with home games is that it's one instance, it's your computer, whatever your computer is, and that computer is running this thing, and that thing is on a network that is not the public internet. That's kind of the assumptions, like a Wi-Fi network or whatever. Your computer's on a Wi-Fi network and you're playing with other stuff on your Wi-Fi network. That's kind of how home games is supposed to work. And Pico de Gallo is kind of the opposite. It is, this thing is people from all over are connecting to me, and I might be slower than a local thing or whatever, just totally different. And because it's a cloud-based service or whatever, at least in this world of it being productionized, or the way I thought of it a week ago, like, oh, I can spin up instances and scale them down, and it could be multiple and have a load balancer and stuff, but that kind of goes against the entire thing of what home games is. Because again, it's one instance, it's one thing, it's your computer. The idea of a load balancer existing in front of home games is kind of hilarious because you're load balancing one thing. You're delegating stuff between one possible option. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that is just to say, I was trying to look into ECS Fargate, the AWS service, to deploy pretty much everything, Pico de Gallo included. And long story, kind of short, but not really that short. ECS requires load balance, you need a load balancer to talk to the containers that you're deploying with ECS, right? Like, these containers are not just publicly accessible over the internet. If you want to go to Pico de Gallo and have it route to something in my ECS cluster, then you need to have a load balancer. And there's two different types of load balancers that I had to use when setting up this stuff for Pico de Gallo, and that was an AWS quote application load balancer, which is just purely HTTP and HTTPS. So it's this service that they'll run, basically that'll handle the request to Pico de Gallo, and then that thing kind of gives me some of the headers of the original request and all that kind of stuff. And so that's essentially all the load balancer is doing. And there's some AWS specifics that I don't really know about underneath it, but essentially it only lets me do HTTP and HTTPS, which is totally fine if I'm only serving a website. But the problem is that the WebSocket connection for the game server is just it's a socket connection over TCP. It just needs generic TCP, but it's not HTTP. So if you want to do that with a load balancer in AWS, you need what's called a network load balancer. Again, I don't know the specifics of how it works underneath to know why this is different from an application load balancer, but it is. And so because I needed generic TCP connections with the socket server, I needed a separate load balancer, right? A network load balancer for that one. And then the application load balancer, the original HTTP/HTTPS one for the app server, right? So you can go to Pico de Gallo, it gives you the app server. The client thing that comes back needs to talk to a game server. That game server lives on this other load balancer. So it would have to be like games.pico de Gallo. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I was kind of banging my head against a bunch of different stuff, but I got to this point where I had the stuff deployed. I was able to consistently deploy it and have it behind this thing. And I had the app working, and then I just needed to get the socket server working. So I was thinking, this is actually a really cool opportunity, because now that we have the game server separate from the app server, or at least we will, right? Because it'll be behind a different load balancer with it'll be a different service essentially. Instead of one thing that serves both, like it would be locally or whatever. And so what that would let people do is essentially fuck around and write their own clients, where you can just attach a client, like just make a connection to games.pico de Gallo, and you'll get back a thing. And then if your client can render that thing, you get it's a game. We can still do that, and I think that's a super cool idea. And then the specifics of the way that I had to do that, because of the way that a target group works, I could only route to one port, which the way home games works, if I can only have one port, that means I can only have one game, unless I want to set up multiple target groups, which seemed like a pain in the ass. Anyway, the point is, I was thinking the limitation of having only a few ports available means that Pico de Gallo could be like a limited thing. Instead of showing the dashboard, it can just show you a game. You know what I mean? So like, there's one game running at Pico de Gallo all the time. People can join it, people can leave it, but it's just the one game. There's not the full home games thing. If you want the full home games thing, you can download it yourself and whatever. I was thinking that'd be kind of a cool way to spin the technical limitations. But anyway, that's the short version of the whole pain in the ass that this was.
How long is the long version?
It's long. It's like at least twice as long, because it's a lot more uhs and ums in there. Anyway, so I set all this up, and then when I was setting up the socket stuff, I realized that because of some problem that I don't understand, the load balancer that sits between the client making the request, in this case, the home games web client, making the request to get the game data, this load balancer that sits in the middle is actually the one handling this handshake with the client to do the TCP handshake to establish how they're going to communicate with each other when they first connect. And so instead of the socket server doing that directly, it's this load balancer. And apparently there's some configuration or some bullshit I need to do on the socket, like on the socket configuration side, to handle this handshake properly so that everything can kind of go full end-to-end behind the load balancer. I don't know how anything works, but at that point I gave up on it because it had already been so much time. And I realized everything I was trying to do was, like I said, the opposite of what Pico de Gallo is, which is a public version of one instance of this thing. Like, it's not supposed to be like a highly scalable, load balanced service. That's not what home games is, at least at this point. So, yeah, I essentially just abandoned all that stuff and went back to having a single instance. I think I can still add some tooling around that to make it so it's easy for me to manage and deploy, but it won't be an ECS service like all the other stuff. And that's just a limitation because the server needs several ports exposed and socket connection and all this other kind of shit that requires a complex infrastructure that is not worth managing, I guess, is the very short version of it.
I see. Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too is like you said, Pico de Gallo is a demo. We're just showing people this is what home games, like current home games, looks
Can
like.
do.
Like the fully committed in and like ran, and like that's the one that we're gonna give you if you download it.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense. That doesn't have to be like super, like you said, like it probably doesn't have to be super productionized. When you make some change, did you say you were already made changes to help with deployments or not yet?
So I had all these changes to or these build scripts that I had for ECS tasks, but since Pico de Gallo, the deployment process there, since it's just an EC2 instance, it is me SSHing into the EC2 instance, manually running a git pull, and then killing the existing server, restarting it. So that's a pain in the ass. I can build some tooling to automate that stuff. I don't know if like Ansible is a thing. I used that a long time ago. It's like this automation scripting stuff you can do for deploying cloud desktops. I don't know if it works on, I don't know if it's even still, I don't know anything. But there's probably some way I can automate that process because it is a few simple manual commands. Yeah, just like adding tooling there for making that easier.
There's just a second Node script running in the background that polls GitHub every hour.
It's hilarious because that's what Builder does right now. The thing at builder.homegames.io, it's just there's a set interval every 5 minutes. It's like, hey, what's the latest commit? Nope, all right.
Every 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Does it need to be that often?
No.
Okay.
But I'm impatient. So when it's like, oh, when I push a change, I want to see that thing built in 5 minutes or so. So I'll make this thing 5 minutes. That's not going to be like every day, because then it'll be like, hey, I just built a new version. It'll be up at some point. Hopefully, I didn't just miss the 24-hour ticker and I have to wait another 24 hours.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, at some point, we probably would need to put out a notice that we pushed an update. So maybe the 24-hour one wouldn't be bad in the end.
Well, ideally it would be a push, an event from GitHub, and I think they do that with their webhook stuff. And I tried to set up an application for the builder, but then it was it wasn't clear to me when I was going through the GitHub app process what I was making, even though they kept giving me all these this documentation and building your first GitHub app is fucking exciting. It's I don't know what this is. Is this how I get events from your API? I don't know what the hell. So anyway,
yeah, I know. I when I built our testing framework, the one that happens when you commit into GitHub, I don't remember if that's still running or not, but yeah, when you commit into GitHub, that one took me forever to figure out what the heck I was supposed to do. I ended up just finding a Medium article where they're like, this is the code, and I was like, well, that's the code.
Shout out to Medium. That's funny.
Well, because it's here's a YAML file. It's I don't remember a YAML from college. That was so many years ago.
YAML's nice. I like JSON, but YAML I've gained an appreciation for.
Yeah, I just haven't worked with it enough, so I don't really know any of what's going on in it. I mean, looking at it now, I probably would have a better understanding after going through that. But yeah, it's nice. I'm glad you went through the pain and suffering, because at the end, that means that you came to a well-researched position, and I like that.
I guess so. Also, just to mention, like I said, I had a library that came up as a result of that. So while I was doing all of this testing, setting up the game server behind a load balancer and just trying to do a lot of different tests to see at what point the socket connection was failing before I ultimately realized it was the load balancer handshake. So in that process, I just needed a simple way to connect to a WebSocket. like whether you have curl for an HTTP request or or Postman for a nice client, whatever for it. It's essentially a nice wrapper around curl, but it's just making HTTP. It's not just curl. I mean, there's a lot of more shit than that, but whatever. It's the same idea. But it doesn't do WebSocket stuff, and it was kind of surprising to me. I mean, I also didn't really search around much, but it was surprising to me that I didn't really find an easy socket tester. Like, just connect to this thing and see what happens. Like, touch the socket, see what happens. And so in that vein, I was thinking, what's a good thing for touch the socket and see what happens? And that's a fork, right? Like, you could put a fork in the socket. But then I was thinking the word fork is so overloaded in this kind of world of tech programming shit. The word fork means like 40 different things depending on what you're talking about. So I called it spoon. So it's spoon, and it's just a simple tool. You open it up. It's an index.html and an app.js. There's no library. There's no build. There's no whatever. You open it up. You type in the thing that has a WebSocket you want to connect to in the port. You hit connect, and then it'll show you the messages in the web app. So I built that to test the socket connection to like I said, the Pico de Gallo game server. Which again, I still think it'd be a super cool idea to just build a game server out there, and people can build their own clients for it. I think that'd be really cool. But anyway, yeah, I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Well, spoon. I mean, that is really cool. Like, really, really, really cool.
It took an hour or whatever, and I was like, okay, well, I don't want this to be a one-off thing, so I'll just go ahead and put this up. That's under my personal repository, though. That's not under Home Games, so it's /process/spoon.
That's right.
On GitHub.
That's right. My boy's gonna become famous off of Spoon, and then Home Games will take off. It'll be great.
Yeah. I was also thinking knife, but that's like a very aggressive name for your GitHub project.
What's your repo? Knife. I'd rather not. Hilariously, I was thinking of like baby finger, because my sister's kid is almost old enough now to crawl around, and so everyone's gonna have to start like putting the little electrical protectors in. Because babies' fingers are so small, they can fit into the socket.
Oh, yep. They're like little death machines, trying to kill themselves constantly.
Yeah.
Wow, that baby got old. I still need to meet that baby. That's crazy.
His cheeks are so chubby. That's all I'll say on that.
Nice. Yeah. In addition to that, just for home game stuff. Like I said, it was about 3 days ago where I don't know what it was, but I guess I was dreaming about vision stuff in home games, like just thinking about how we would do it. And I woke up and got out of bed, and in my head still like flashing was just like a screen with like a square zooming in and out. It's like, okay, I see the vision. And I guess I was thinking about it kind of off and on this past week as well. And I think I can't really know how I want things to be built until I'm kind of in the thick of it and seeing how things are working and what needs to talk to what and what needs to do what. I can't really think about that stuff until I do it. So in terms of how we would actually implement that stuff, I'm just thinking kind of off the top of my head, we would add some bullshit hack into the squisher, and then it would have different kind of view states for each node, and maybe do some calculation to say like this thing has some sort of projection from this point on it, like make a triangle go out from my eyes and goes that way, or make a rectangle that goes out from here and go this way, or whatever. And if I can have the ability to do that and get the projection of, like, if I can ask the question, what does the red square at this space see? And I get back a rectangle of coordinates of where that projection is like at on the grid. So like this thing can see the rectangle here. And then I also have like this other system where I can have the idea of a camera, basically, where I can get like I had mentioned, an overview look of a map in an RTS where you get the zoom in and out and the pan. it's essentially the same thing once you get the character's perspective. Okay, so like I know I'm talking like a high idiot. So you have a rectangle that you want to do something with, and this rectangle represents what something sees of the game. This whole game exists on a 2D grid. So everything that can be seen by something is really just a shape on that 2D grid that is mathematically generated by where is the thing, where is it looking. So if I'm in the center of it and I'm looking at this angle, I can calculate that there's a rectangle at these coordinates on the grid that represent what this thing sees. Does that make sense? Okay. So then if you have that rectangle...
Sorry, I'm typing this up so I can reread this later. So
Okay.
I'm muting myself, but I will nod and interact with Joseph just non-verbally for the people in Spotify or whatever, that they can't see what I'm doing. They just think Joseph's talking and I'm completely ignoring him.
Okay, so once you calculate that shape, the problem just becomes what is in this shape on the grid. I can traverse the tree, do some shitty calculations that are probably inefficient and bad, and say, okay, well, here's all the stuff in that shape. Give it to something that would then give it to the player and say, here's what you see. Like, Yazeed sees the top half of the map. I've calculated this rectangle. The squisher says, oh, okay, Yazeed sees this rectangle, not the entire game, not the entire grid, just this rectangle on top of the grid. Right, so he can't see this bottom half. So then the squisher just needs to wrestle everything that's in the top half of the thing, everything that is within that rectangle, and then give that to you as your squished game state, because it doesn't need to give you the full grid. It gives you what you see. And we already do that filtering. Can this person see this based off of what's in the game node? We can add some other logic there to say, well, according to whatever vision rules they have, can they see this? And if they can, then we only return it back or whatever. And it's like everything else is black, everything else is gray, or whatever the hell. I don't know. You could add tweaks or whatever to see what you do with the rest of the game, I guess. But the point is that filtering and stuff can happen in the squisher. The like, you want a subset of this game. The vision part is you calculated the subset. Everything else is just filtering the game.
I see. So, given...
Does that make sense?
I want to write down a thought real quick. So I'm gonna mute.
Okay.
I'm gonna mute again. One sec. Sorry.
No problem. I'm talking out loud or thinking out loud to fill this space here, but that same thing is the panning on a map. If I say I have this entire map, I'm zoomed in as much as I possibly can on the center of this map. I can actually only see this small rectangle that I've calculated based off of my zoom level and my XY of where I am on the map. It's the same process. You calculate a rectangle, you give me a part of the game frame that is in this rectangle. I can do something else with the rest.
Okay, so I'm going to make a series of statements, and you are going to tell me if what I've got is correct or not.
You're so formal. But
yeah,
sure.
well, that's how this is like how I think, and it's not regular. It's like a sociopath's version of how they think and understand things. Nice. I'm using set theory, so you will use like set logic and explanation. So, given a set of all possible elements, right, and a position and a vision shape, we can build a subset of elements in the set that can be seen. Thus, we can hand back that subset of seen elements.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay. I see. I think that the problem is I think that the problem is kind of similar to what I've run into where I'm at right now, in that vision has direction from a position. So it doesn't, just because it's in the shape doesn't mean we necessarily see it. So I think we'd need to have a way of marking certain game nodes as vision blockers so that you can't punch through a shape, right? So like imagine glass versus a concrete wall, right? Glass is a vision allower. You can see through glass. Maybe it reduces the amount you can see past it, but it allows you to see past it. Whereas a concrete wall denies all vision through it. So from your position, if you're looking at a concrete wall, if it's directly in front of you, you can't see anything but that concrete wall. Yeah. If you are looking at a glass pane, you can see through the glass pane to the other side. So glass isn't a vision blocker in this case. So I think that we'd run into a similar problem to where I'm at right now. But I do like the idea of formalizing a little bit and pushing this off into Squisher, because having each game that needs vision having to implement their vision themselves is going to be a nightmare, because I imagine a lot of games are going to need vision to them.
Yeah, the vision thing I think should be a set of like a common utility thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it'll live in Squisher forever. I just think that's where the processing will be done, at least as the first like hacky start. So it'll live somewhere else probably in the end, but I don't know. But in terms of like I guess the whole like seeing through glass or seeing through concrete or seeing whatever, those seem like the filters where it's like, okay, if I'm standing here and I can see out of these windows, the idea that my vision cone is calculated off of the position I am in, the position, like the angle I'm looking at, those things are always going to be used to calculate what I can see. And then the things inside of that cone having some different effect because I can see them, that is like the after. That's like the step 2 after we've figured out what's even in the cone. So even if it's not just blindly returning that stuff, I think, and this is something we can probably talk about in a more like fleshed out way on that video that we want to do about whatever, like the technical details of this particular thing, the vision stuff, which I think we're going to do at some point. I don't know. We don't have a date yet, but anyway, that sounds like the potential for someone making a game to have their like filters in there to easily kind of modify and fuck with the things that are coming back in that return subset and say, okay, well, you know, take all the blocks that are of this type and actually make them look like this and make them look like this. And when you have that kind of a visual state thing for one particular person instead of the thing just existing for everybody, then you can do that thing like you had mentioned in your freaking thing about the game you're making, the infection game. I forget what you're calling it, but color tag, where something can be one color to someone and another color to someone else. And the current answer is no, because there would need to be one of each color, because one thing can't be two colors to different people or whatever. But with the thing that I think that we're thinking of, or at least I'm thinking of, which is essentially like this shade, like this thing that exists on your view of stuff in the Squisher. It's like a warped perception of the actual world instead of just the world. You can actually see something that is red and see it as blue, or see something as something else or whatever. We can kind of add that flexibility in there in a good way for the game developer. I just don't know what that interface looks like yet, but I think it is still just generate the thing, give me the subset, do something with it, and then you have the ability to do the complicated, tricky math stuff of figuring out what the vision looks like through glass or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it sounds like what you want to do is make a version of collision detection that's just modified, which is kind of what I was thinking of as well. So I think we're on a similar line of thinking on this, where we want to build a set of things that we can see and basically like operate with just that set, because it doesn't make sense for me to get the whole everything. The game doesn't need to know where everybody's located if you can only see yourself. So I do agree. So that I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting thing when we actually sit down and start to do it. I was thinking, like, I have my Surface tablet, so whenever we do that video, we can just get like a shared whiteboard app, and then you can just write it out and draw it out, and hopefully that'll be an interesting video or whatever content. So that'll be cool.
I agree. I was thinking of, I don't know if you remember this from Halo or more from Valorant. It does this as well. But on like the mini maps for those games, it gives you like the little like triangle that you can see in front of you. In Valorant, it's a little bit more specific. Like in Halo, it's just like, here's the triangle that you can see on the map, but it doesn't like block that off with like terrain or stuff. In Valorant, I'll when we do this, I might like find a YouTube video that shows it. But like in Valorant, it gives you vision, and if it hits a wall, the vision doesn't pass through it. Like on the mini map, it actually literally shows you when your vision collides with something and can't see through it.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think like that's kind of more in line with what I think we would need. So maybe I'll do it. Maybe demo that maybe to you or just to other people as well. But that's actually like a kind of cool thing that Valorant does. With their vision.
Yeah, because you would be. It's like you calculate the vector math of like looking here, and then I have this much sight, and I have all this, but like. The cone thing I'm talking about is all this before you have anything in it. And then if you have a wall here that you can't see past, there would need to be this filter before it comes back to you saying that you can't actually see any of this because of math. And
like the directionality of vision is going to make this tricky, but
yeah, that's just like figuring out crazy algorithms and whatever. Not just, I mean, that's math and crazy hard shit and whiteboards or whatever, but it'll be fun. And then the other thing is it like in that filter as well, it can also do modify. So it can like filter and transform the thing that comes back to individual people. I think ultimately that's like a like the idea of a camera in a very generic way. For these 2D games, and it also might translate in the same way to a potential 3D game if we ever wanted to do that, which would be cool. And we'd be doing 3D vector math, which I only ever took Calc 2, and so I might be super fucked there, but we'll see.
I did do vector calculus. I won't say I'm good at it, but I did do vector calculus. I don't actually think we need to do calculus with it because we don't use a contiguous system, right? Like ours, for the most part, we use integers. So
we have some floating point numbers in there, like the coordinates.
Yeah, but those are discrete.
See, I don't even know math words. This is what I'm talking about. I'm way out of my element. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Sorry, what I mean by discrete is we know the exact number of intervals, right? It's not like it's infinitesimally small, which is what calculus covers, right?
Got it. Okay.
So in calculus, like the reason that you need calculus in like the real world applications is because there's always like a smaller thing between intervals. Like you can always get like smaller, right? Calculus is really like the limit as your interval grows to 0. Like so you're looking at a single like vertical slice in time or whatever. In home games, just in computers in general, you can't really get that close because there's always going to be some amount, like there's always like a minimum amount that you can get close to, right? Even if you're thinking about like even like floating point numbers, there's a minimum accuracy of a floating point number. And for people who know in 252 we learned about it's like the mantissa and the exponent and all of that stuff gets placed into like a register in in assembly, which then goes into machine code, which then gets ran by the hardware. So it's like a minimum value that we can use as our integer, or like the smallest value possible. I don't mean minimum as in like negative numbers. I mean like the shortest
absolute value.
Yeah. So we always know there's like a finite number of intervals. So I don't think we really need calculus for it. We would need like a modified version of vector calc, I think.
All I'm saying is I got a D in geometry in high school. I took Calc 2 in college and got a B. And that's like the come up on the math thing, and that's really nice that I ended it on a high note, but I don't know shit about 3D game programming. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know anything about game programming, but I do remember a little bit from vector calculus, and just some understanding from other math that I had taken about like discreteness and non-discrete. So Yeah, good stuff. We don't work with the real numbers, right? We work with a subset of the real numbers, and that's nice for us because we don't need to sit down and take an integral or a derivative because I don't remember all of that off the top of my head anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Sounds like math, but yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it or whatever.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited.
What a nerd. Is it time for Song of the Week?
It is time for Song of the Week.
Song of the Week.
I don't think people who only listen on Spotify know this, but I tend to mouth the little womp womp womp, and then Joseph kind of like bobs his head to it. So just so you know that we're also listening to the song in our head.
Yeah, I try to. It's like burned into my brain, so I kind of play it in my head every time. Also, I know that edible is indeed kicking because the song was all fucked up in my head. It's like boom, boom, blah 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 boom. I was like, okay, this is not the way. This is not the tempo, you know. Anyway, your Song of the Week was "Pools" by Glass Animals. I enjoyed this. This was like that chanty white guy shit that is nice when you just don't want to think about like your drive to the supermarket or whatever, and it's on the radio. It's just like, yeah, you know, positive energy, like probably some Ray-Bans in there somewhere, you know. I mean, like there's just like that kind of a vibe. It was cool, you know. It was cool. I liked it. I liked the sound. I didn't like what it represented. I don't really know what it represented, but I didn't like the energy. So that's why it's going to be not on my playlist. I also didn't really love how the outro was like 40 seconds long. He repeated the same thing over and over and over, and then it like kind of faded, and then it played like this 15-second outro with some like bullshit. It's like, this song could have been shorter if you just didn't have all this, you know, keep it succinct. But I did. I liked the sound. I thought it was cool. It was nice. Pleasant.
It gives you like rainforest vibes. I felt like.
I can see that.
I in general really like Glass Animals because a lot of time none of their stuff really, like at least off of this album, nothing really in there makes much sense to me. But I like the vibe that it. Like each song has like a really distinct, unique vibe to it. Yeah. I like this one for that.
Yeah, it was a cool song. It was nice.
Yeah, for people who don't listen to Glass Animals, Zappa is one of the only albums I've ever listened to completely. So
it's so wild.
Give it a go.
You should listen to more albums.
What?
You should listen to more albums. Like Lil Boat, which came out 5 years ago today, and the song "One Night" is on that album.
That was Joseph's Song of the Week this week. I don't know if you've ever picked a Lil Yachty song before.
Yeah.
But this was not what I was expecting, just at all.
What were you expecting?
I was expecting something more in the line of like Young Thug, like much more energy, much more like aggression almost. Like this was like chilled out. This was like just, you know, like my favorite line from this one was "Stack my bread up, fuck your head up." I was like, nice, dude.
That's just what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like he's like, you know, like you like me a lot, like you wanna put a ring on it. Right, and he's like, but I'm only here for the night, you know. Maybe in the morning I'll give you a little something, but then I'm outie, you know. And I was like, he was pretty upfront about it. I thought it was pretty cool. Also, I think this is the first music video that I've seen that everyone seemed happy. Everyone, the extras in the back, the main dude, everyone was just like, yeah, this is pretty nice.
This music video is magic. Like, this whole song sounds like it's underwater. This whole album actually does, because the producer Burberry Perry had like this perfect sound for this thing, and like it just sounds bubbly and like nice. And this came out 5 years ago, which when One Night started to get really big, it was like, I don't know, summer 2016, and that's when I moved out to Seattle. And so for me, this song and this whole album and like this era of Lil Yachty is like super perfect to me. Like you said, it's like you were expecting Young Thug. He has some stuff that's like Young Thug. I would say that Lil Bo, the original album, is like peak Lil Yachty, and I still like his new stuff a lot. He's these days he has this sound that sounds like Flint, Michigan. There's like this kind of like fast, not quite offbeat, but just off-sounding rapping that's like very popular in Flint, Michigan, and Lil Yachty is doing that. So he kind of switches up his style a lot. If you compare, like, look up the song "Hit 'Bout It" that came out a couple weeks ago, compare his rapping on that to "One Night," and it's totally different, but I like them both. Anyway, "One Night's" great. Sounds like water. And when I moved to Seattle, I worked near South Lake Union, which is there's a lake called Lake Union. This area of Seattle is south of it, hence South Lake Union. And it was like a totally new world to me. Just moved out of the house and moved across the country and all that kind of stuff. And so I was playing this like on repeat basically. And the water sounds and that video, like of everybody being happy and like all the like, there's one part in particular where the girl is like doing this and it's like perfectly timed to the beat. I love that part. There's something about it, like visually, that just clicks. And then being right next to a lake, like when I listen to this, like it just like that whole fucking thing is so perfect to me. I have like such a memory with this whole thing. It's crazy. That's also when that homeless guy called me a loser. What? Go ahead.
We'll come back to that. You also moved out there like in the summer, didn't you?
Yeah, we moved out there June 2016, and like
this is like some serious summer vibes. I definitely got summer vibes from this one. Not just because like everyone's wearing like a wetsuit or like, you know, like a tropical like Hawaiian shirt or whatever, and like they're playing in the sand or in like the water. I liked it. The song is fun for sure.
Yes. Yeah, it's fun and it's simple and it's silly, and like on the music video there's a sing-along and there's like a little dolphin at the bottom and it's like going along with the words. It's just goofy. It's like it's the perfect Lil Yachty thing because he's funny, like he has a sense of humor or whatever. And you know, like at that time, like rap just didn't, like you need that goofy thing, like you need that funny personality, whatever. So this and Broccoli, if you want another one that kind of has the same like up tempo vibe.
Broccoli?
Broccoli by Dram, DRAM.
I don't really like broccoli.
It's not about broccoli.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's about that other green tree, you know what I mean?
Cauliflower.
Yep, that's the one. That was when like I lived in Seattle, and then Synovia lived in Washington, but she didn't live with me. So we lived separately for a little bit or whatever, because we moved out there. Whatever, the whole thing, but we didn't live together. And so she was working one night, and there was a ticket for a Lil Yachty concert, and I had just like started listening to his stuff. And I was like, oh shit, Lil Yachty's coming to town. Like, I'm new here. I want to go out and see what's happening, whatever. And so I got a ticket for the boat show tour. Again, he was super new at this point. He was touring with a group that he called the Sailing Team. And it was all these rappers. A lot of them are actually like pretty successful now individually. But it was all these other people who were super young, you know, just with him making music. And it felt very like amateurish in a cool way. But anyway, for that concert, I was out waiting in line, and I don't know if you're familiar with that part of downtown, like that part of Seattle, but it's like a giant Target, and then the venue is called the Showbox, and it's right next to that Target. So basically there's like a thing around the block of people just waiting, and they're right next to a Target, whatever. I think it was a Showbox, might have been another one. Anyway, I ate an edible before I went out to that concert, because I was like, I'm going to a concert alone. That's kind of funny, you know, like it's kind of weird, and it's at a concert and it's legal out here, woo, because it was, you know, I just moved out there and whatever. And so I was waiting in line, and there were all these kids, and I realized at that moment, because I was 21, and I was at that point old for the crowd, because he was like a kid, like he's a few years younger than me and you. And a lot of his fan base was like teenagers. And so in front of me, these kids were like drinking Molly water or some shit. They put something in some water and it dissolved, and they all drank out of it. So they were like vibing out or whatever, these three kids in front of me. And then in the back, there were like behind me, there were these two groups of two. Like it was a group of four, but they were talking two and two. Mm. And then the edible started to kick in a little early. And so I just got super like paranoid because I just started hearing everything really well. I started hearing all the conversation in front of me, hearing the conversation behind me. I started tweeting like a madman just to get my mind off of like what was happening. So I was like, I think I was tweeting about how I realized I was too old. I was having like a fucking crisis because everybody was so old, like so young. I thought it was crazy because like I had just graduated college and I was like, I was young. It's like, what the fuck? Anyway, and then I just started hearing everything, and then behind me I heard like, is that guy alone? And I was like, oh no, like they're talking about me. They know I'm here by myself. They're just looking at me be by myself. You know what I mean? Like, and then the other one was like, hey man, I respect it. But they were like talking to each other. And I was like, fuck, I don't want to be talked about. You know, I was like way in my own head. And then a homeless dude came by asking everybody for money or whatever. And he saw me wearing glasses and I looked a little different from everybody else doing drugs in the line and whatever. And he was just like, oh, you don't look like these people. You're a loser.
Oh my God.
A literal homeless man called me a loser while I waited for the concert. And then I got to the concert. I was by myself. And then this dude came up to me and he was like, hey man, because it was super packed in there. He was like, hey man, there's this chair right next to you. I'm going to sit to the right of this chair. So we'll have some space over here to ourselves. Whenever people come up and ask us if the seat's taken, just say that our friend's in the bathroom. So we get this little space to ourselves because he was also there by himself.
Hell yeah.
The edible was kick in, you know what I mean? So yeah. I was like freaking the fuck out. I was like, okay, cool. And I'm terrible with social pressure. Mm-hmm. So someone came up 2 minutes later and he was like, hey, is this seat taken? It was like not busy at all. The crowd hadn't even moved in yet. I like made eye contact with the dude that I had talked to, and I was just like, I can't do it. No, it's not taken.
Oh my God.
And he was just there like shocked that I was such a fucking idiot or whatever. And then I basically just watched Lil Yachty dump a water bottle onto people's heads for like an hour and a half. That was their whole show. They kept just spraying water on people. It was a whole event. It was great. Really grew as a person that day, I think.
Oh man, that's a great story. I'll remember that one for later. I think I remember you tweeting out a whole bunch because, like you said, I only check Twitter like once every 2 weeks. I think that happened to be the day I was checking Twitter.
Yeah, I remember because I was just like, these kids don't know what a VHS is or whatever, like what a VCR is.
You went full boomer, if I remember right. You were definitely like, they don't even know what a Nokia is.
I don't know, man. It's a crazy feeling. I saw a tweet today, too, and it was like some TikTok teenager who was like, I wish I grew up in the time when this was new. And it was the song by The Killers, the He Takes Off Her Dress. No, that one. It's just like, what? Like you have nostalgia for when I was 13? Like that time sucked ass. Like,
you're like, I don't have nostalgia for when I was 13.
2007 was trash to be 13. It's terrible.
Bro. Well, honestly, I can imagine some kids today wanting to go back to like before social media was popping off. I would understand that. But to want to go back to when the Killers were just happening, that's a little crazy.
2004 was that song, so we were 10. But yeah, I just think I think it's that other thing of getting older, of realizing that maybe the time periods that you had romanticized were actually never, like they never really existed either. Like there was never this 1980s where everything looked like the Ninja Turtles movie and it was, you know, like pizza and arcades and like cool shit or whatever. Like that time never really existed. It's just a cool version of it. So
yeah.
Seeing kids get to you.
Do you remember the music video to Michael Jackson's Beat It?
Yeah.
Where they have that knife fight?
Yeah, is that where there's like 50 dudes and there's like a giant group of them?
Yeah.
The other one. Okay.
I asked somebody who was alive when that song came out. I was like, yo, dude, like, was that stuff really happening? He was like, no, they just shoot you. Why would they go out into like a parking lot and have a knife fight? And I was like, but it seemed like so cool, like honorable combat among thieves with a knife and you're like tied to the guy. It's like, no one was doing that.
Yeah.
He just shot you or stabbed you and no one was looking. That one hurt me a little bit. I was like, dang it.
Yeah. It's like that thing never existed. It's always people just kind of making a crazy version of what's real. And so people looking back are like, wow, the world was really just a bunch of dudes wearing top hats, huh? Like, crazy.
I believe in that one still. Have you ever seen the movie Warriors? Like the cult classic Warriors?
No. That the Warriors come out and play?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
We should watch that together because I've never seen it either.
Okay. Yeah. Next time we see each other in person, we'll watch the Warriors.
Next time. You mean in April?
April? Hopefully, maybe sooner if I get my car registered.
April's really soon.
Yeah, but like next week is even sooner. Also, yeah, I'm getting married a month from tomorrow. It's pretty fucked, but yeah.
All right, man. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
You have your rapid fire questions, right?
Oh shoot, I moved it. That's what happened. Okay. How familiar are you with love languages?
It was like, some people like to be patted on the head or whatever. Some people want to be told that they're cool. Yeah. That's about it. That's all my familiarity.
So the rapid fire question of the week is, what is your love language? And the options are words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, gifts, and touch.
I think quality time is probably it. Spending time with someone, I think, is like the ultimate proof that you like them, because you can give someone a gift and not give a fuck about them. Like, you can touch someone and not give a fuck about them. Like, I feel like spending your time is pretty it.
I understand. I can respect it. I like words of affirmation probably too much. The moment someone says anything nice to me, I'm like, we're friends now.
Wow,
which is a complete 180 from when we became friends.
Yeah, like go to Chick-fil-A, someone holds the door open, just like, wow, are we brothers?
No, actually, when I go to like food service places, this happened to me one time actually. Me and one of my friends were going to the same like fast food place, and I ordered the exact same thing every time, and he ordered I think the exact same thing every time, and we went at the same time regularly at the same time. We went in, the lady who was like taking orders recognized the two of us and just asked us if we wanted the regular, and then repeated our orders to us, and I was just like, we can never come back here ever. We can't. We didn't go back to that place, I think, for like 6 months.
Dude.
And we changed the time that we went back and the day that we went back. So we used to go on like Tuesdays at like 11 or whatever, and we changed it to like Thursdays at like 2.
You stood on the other person's shoulders in a trench coat.
Yeah, a little bit. I get very uncomfortable around that when people like that I don't know that level. That's too much detail about me.
Yeah, we had that when with my friend and I. We used to work like in basically the same plaza as a McDonald's. So we would go to McDonald's for lunch almost every day. We'd get like an ice cream cone, or we'd actually we'd get ice cream cones for like midday snacks most of the time, because we worked as students like 4 hours a day or whatever. And so that got to a point where like we went in every day and they just kind of recognized us and knew us. I forget what the actual like recognition was, but it was like very clear that they knew who we were and what we wanted, and because we were there yesterday and the day before, I was like, oh no, this lifestyle has to change. We can't go to fucking McDonald's for ice cream at 4 p.m. every day.
I think there's a level, right? Like if you went to like a fine dining establishment and like you walked in and like the wait staff and like the maitre d' all knew who you were, and they're like, oh hey Joseph, your regular table is ready. That's
in the
sick.
mafia.
Yeah, that's sick. Mickey D's though, walking into a Mickey D's and those guys like know you that much. That's a little concerning.
You got a
like
reserve
the mafia
spot at the
a little
McDonald's.
bit. Like that's how I imagine, like in The Sopranos, there's probably a scene like that. Like they go to an Italian fancy restaurant regularly, and they walk in, and like the owner comes out to greet them, and like the head chef comes out and is like, yes, and then the sommelier comes out and is like, this wine will pair perfectly.
That's actually a huge thing, because one of the things is that they go to a restaurant all the time, and the owner of it is a friend of his from childhood. So it's like a whole subplot a couple times. There's like a bunch of stories So you're exactly right. That's like the whole show. We just got to season 5, by the way. The Sopranos season 4 was slow as shit. I know some characters die in season 5, so I'm just like waiting for it. And so that's all.
Oh snap! I haven't found a new show to watch, so I'm just chilling, big chilling.
Yeah, I don't have any recommendations or anything. But I was going to say, I realized you said you wanted to know more about The Sopranos by the time I was done watching it. I've said nothing about the actual show, just my progress in it. So do you want me to, like, recap seasons? Like, what do you want me to, like, tell you things about the show?
I don't know. I guess that's kind of up to you. I know the only thing I know about The Sopranos is it's like it is influenced by like movies like The Godfather, like it's Italian mob movie.
Yeah,
that's really like all I know about The Sopranos. And that's so like I know more about it because we talked about it, but I don't know that much more about it. So I don't need you to give me like a plot synopsis, but like I don't know, just check in a little bit. You know, like like I do Dog Tales. Like you're pretty familiar with Sapphire, even though you've only met her a handful of times. Yeah. Like I think that would be that's kind of like what I would like, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll be better prepared, and I'll give you a quick summary of the story up to this point, so at least you can understand the season 5 update. Because I can be like, this character did this, and you'll be like, who's this character? And I'll be like, oh, well, then he did this, and then you'll be like, why did he do that? And I'll be like, oh, and then I have to explain whatever, that whole thing.
Fun for me is this week I'm actually off from Agility because Agility 2 doesn't start till next week. So nice. This will be my first Wednesday evening in 7 weeks that I don't have something to do. So I might start a TV show or something.
You should watch, you should either, these are my suggestions. 1, watch episode 1 of The Sopranos. It's pretty good. And you can see the characters because they're all really great. Or 2, get an emulator and play Pokemon.
I might do that second one, honestly. What Pokemon did you say I should try? Fire or something?
I like Fire Red quite a bit. I also really like Emerald. I believe it's like the same game, but Rayquaza's in it, and I like Rayquaza. He's a big green dragon fucker. He doesn't fuck dragons. He is a fucker who is a dragon.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
If it was the other way around, I'd be a little concerned.
I don't know how he reproduces. Maybe he fucks dragons. I don't know.
I mean, if you're a dragon monster, the other dragon monsters are probably attractive to you. That's all I'm saying.
Probably.
All I'm gonna, the last thing I'm gonna say on this podcast is: do you remember the Yu-Gi-Oh card Lord of D?
Yeah, I remember the name of it. Yeah,
that's what I thought of when you said when you said what you said.
Lord of D. That's awesome because I was really not really sure what to call this episode, and I have to upload it in 2 hours. So I was like, "Fuck, what's the title?" I have to like skim through it and see what we said. But Lord of D, there we are. Thank you.
You're welcome. I produce.
You do. All right. I think that's going to do it for us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you next week. Let me talk slowly so my laptop can come back up. As always, our music was done by our friend Tynan. He is at Nytan on Bandcamp. That is Nytan, Nytan. Our website is homegames.io. It looks bad, tell us why, at homegames.io. On Twitter, we have an email address. It's podcast@homegames.io. If you email that, I'll read it. Yazeed has access to read it, but he hasn't set up his mailbox, and it's been over a year, folks. Over a year. I am paying for this. Podcast@homegames.io with any questions, comments, anything you got. We will read it, probably on the podcast as well. Thank you again for listening. We'll see you next week.
Burying your boy. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.